Good morning, BookTube. It is the first day of the reading rush, and I am just getting ready to head out the door here to work. And what I'm taking with me in my bag today is Portrait in Brownstone by Louis Auchincloss. And I'm going to be stumbling over this last name all week until I finally do the proper thing and remember to Google it to remind myself how to pronounce it. But yeah, so I'm going to be reading this, and I am actually, oops, there's that, a little bit behind schedule, but it doesn't matter too much here. Monday, of course. So I always say that I read on the way to work, but since I moved, my reading habits have changed a bit because I actually walk halfway, and then I do only have about 10 minutes or less on the bus to read. Hi BookTube, so it's my lunch break and I did start reading Portrait in Brownstone on the bus today, and it's pretty good so far. The novel opens with Ida having a telephone conversation with her cousin Geraldine, who seems to be not doing so well. It's indicated that they have known each other most of their lives, and they had sort of a less than friendly feud growing up, but that Ida is now 60, and her husband Derek is opposed to providing any more support for Geraldine. In fact, her husband Derek doesn't even want to go to the trouble of arranging another nurse who will better look after Geraldine. And Ida is very concerned about Geraldine's mental health. And we learn within the first few pages that she had a right to be concerned, because she wakes up the next morning to a phone call indicating that Geraldine has jumped out the 8th floor window and is dead. So we start off with a suicide, and then by chapter 2 we are back in Ida and Geraldine's childhood, in their teenage years. And I'm wondering how well you're going to be able to hear this, because it is quite loud here. But as I said, it opens with the suicide of Geraldine, and the indication that although Geraldine and Ida were very close in terms of their relationship most of their life, there was a feud between them. And we actually learn that Geraldine had an affair with Ida's husband Derek, which makes it even more explicable that Derek is so completely cold towards Geraldine. And in fact, he's making, snide remarks even when he learns about her death. And Derek decides, we're going to have breakfast before we go and see about the body, which sounds absolutely horrible, and that's not what you should be doing when a family member dies, especially by suicide. You don't sit down and have breakfast, as Derek does here. So that's where the novel is at so far. In chapter 2, the narrator Ida takes us back to her teenage years, and where I'm at now, we're learning about a third cousin by the name of Livia, who was not related by birth but was in fact a stepsister, and then another cousin by the name of Scotty. So you can probably hear me better in here, but the essence of it is that I'm enjoying this novel so far, and I'm interested to find out where the the rivalry started between these two cousins. It seems to be with Geraldine being the prettier, wealthier one, perhaps with Ida being the smarter of the cousins. And of course, discovering exactly how Geraldine came to seduce Ida's husband Derek, and why Geraldine ended up so unhappy and alone past the age of 60, and why she was in a suicidal state. So I'll continue on with this after work. Hi BookTube, so I didn't actually get to read any on my commute home. Unfortunately, the bus was full when it pulled up and I ended up standing, so obviously I couldn't really read while I was trying to hold on to the bus pole and getting bumped up against people and holding on to my bags and whatnot. So it is nearly 4 p.m. here on Monday, and I am only 40 pages into Portrait in Brownstone, but I did want to mention that this novel is set in New York City, which I don't think I mentioned earlier, and when the novel opens, it is 1950, so that gives you an idea of the setting here. I'm going to make myself some dinner here. Let's see, what have I got going on? I've got chicken, I've got an ear of corn. That is starting to get a little crunchy looking, but the corn should be fine on the inside. And I'm going to make some rice with this little curry packet here. And I'm going to probably read while the rice cooks. So I've made this chicken curry, I guess I'll call it, cheap and easy, and this corn looks pretty good as well. And of course I've got leftovers for work tomorrow. So I'm lying here in bed reading, and I've come across this great little passage here. She has spoken up as a young girl, she's 15 here, spoken up and told a secret to her parents, to the adults, that she wasn't supposed to tell, that was given to her in confidence. And although it worked out, it probably was beneficial for the other people involved, the people who are keeping the secret, she feels a bit guilty. And so our narrator, Ida, says, "And I was left with my tortured doubts as to whether it was jealousy or spite or simple weak-mindedness that had induced me for the first time to put my hand into the spinning wheel of life on our street, and bring it, however briefly, to a halt. Nobody suspected my anguish." So I know it could possibly just be the times this the book was published in, because I think the copyright date does say 1962, but Ida's husband Derek comes off as a real asshole. And I'm not just talking about the earlier passage where he sat down for breakfast after learning about the death of his wife's cousin. I'm reading here a passage where, it's a flashback back in time, and we're hearing what Derek was thinking prior to their marriage. And he's talking about how, with the fulfillment of marriage, all her silly ideas and half-baked notions could be expected to blow away. And with a bit of discipline and care about her dress and weight, she could easily become a very handsome woman. So this is her husband Derek showing up and looking at her not as someone that he already loves and someone that he already respects, but as someone that he can fix, as someone that he can mold into the perfect wife. And then farther on, the narrator here goes on to explain, for Derek minced no words with himself. He wanted a woman who would be his property, spiritually as well as physically, and he knew the New York social scene already too well not to understand how few of such women it offered. Ida admired him and perhaps was already in love with him. He felt sure that she would not be fickle. Did he love her? Probably not. But when had he been in love? And how long did a man have to wait? It's just, she really picked a terrible husband, and I'm hoping he gets what he deserves by the end of this novel. Not only for his motives in marrying her, but also for his behavior towards her. Okay, here's a great line here. Geraldine is meeting someone for the first time, and she says, "Oh, I've been abroad. Aunt Dagmar gave me a trip to Paris for my birthday. You see, I'm like Amy from Little Women. I'm the niece who gets what she wants." I love a good literary reference in my books, especially to Little Women, which is a delightful story, and I've always loved the movie adaptation with Elizabeth Taylor. I think she's the one who plays Amy, and of course the actress who plays Jo is absolutely divine, and I love to watch her in anything I can get my hands on. So for whatever reason, even though Geraldine is known not to be the one who's well read, and Ida is considered the intelligent one who reads a lot, Geraldine loves to quote novels. So perhaps she is a novel reader, but she says here to a young man, "It's just like Mill on the Floss." Geraldine continued in her maddening, superior tone. Only there, Philip hadn't even kissed Lucy. Or if he had, George Eliot doesn't say so. She's just casually comparing herself to Lucy. Well, not to Lucy, but she's comparing herself to a character from Mill on the Floss. She's comparing herself to Amy from Little Women, which I guess would make her cousin Ida Lucy, and would make Ida also Jo in Little Women, perhaps. Fun novel so far. We'll see how it keeps on going. I'm 100 pages in now. Fun fact, if you try to film while pouring a cup of tea, there's a good chance the little tea tab will end up inside your cup instead of staying on the outside like it normally would if you were holding on to that tab while you pour. Lesson learned. I'm on page 121 now, and the literary references just keep coming in this novel. Now it's Ida who is making a reference to something, to Pride and Prejudice. She says, "I was hot and ashamed when he had gone to find that, like the heroine of Pride and Prejudice, which I had read the week before to father, I was regretting already that my rejected suitor so obviously meant his words about refusing to beg." So she's comparing this relationship to that of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. Although, let's be honest, this man Derek is nothing like Darcy. Not that Darcy is perfect, but definitely I would prefer a Darcy to a Derek, because at least Darcy isn't running around with other women. But still enjoying this. Going to continue on here. I'm thinking with all the footage I'm getting today, I might just end up posting a daily vlog, at least for today, because if I continue to collect this footage and to use all of it, I'm going to have a massive vlog by the end of this week. So it may be a daily vlog instead of the week-long vlog that I had intended. But we shall see. I've made a cup of tea here for myself, and I'm continuing to enjoy Portrait in Brownstone. So I've come across another lovely passage here. This is from the perspective of Dorcas, another woman who appears in this novel. And we're actually getting this portion of the book sort of from her perspective about her life. And we've set aside Ida and Geraldine for a bit. But she is talking with a man, and she comes to the conclusion that to get to know her, he should come for dinner. And so she says, "You can come to a family supper," she exclaimed in excitement. "That's it, you can meet my mother and father. You're always asking about them, but you've never met them." "Exactly, it's like a James novel. I make them out entirely from your point of view," he says. "But that's not fair to them," she says. "It's probably fairer than you think. You see, I regard myself as a trained reader. I make allowances for your astigmatism." "But life isn't a novel," she protested. "No, but we can try to make it one, can't we?" That's a funny little passage there. And once again, this author is drawing on a literary reference, Henry James, who I've never read, but I've heard that he is good. And I think one of the things in Henry James' writing is that we often view people through the perspective of someone else. We never actually see them. We see how people see them. So just an interesting passage there once again. So I've got about 20 pages or so left of Portrait in Brownstone. And although I was really enjoying it at first, right now all I really need is a drink. So I popped out, went to the LCBO, and decided it was a good night for some gin and tonics. Not too many, probably just one or two because it is a work night. But when it's hot like this, you want a drink sometimes. That's not a beer at the local pub. So I'm in a gin and tonic mood. I think it's been several months since I had a gin and tonic, so this is long overdue. But I'm almost finished the novel Portrait in Brownstone, and it's kind of devolved into an account of the failed marriages and divorces that Ida has seen in the lives of her immediate family, in her children's lives, in Geraldine's lives, particularly her daughter Dorcas and her son Hugo's attempts at marriage, attempts at romance, attempts at being in love. And so it's devolved right into that, and I haven't really, at this point, only 20 pages left. And I'm not sure why Geraldine committed suicide or what happened to her final husband. I know what happened between her and Ida's husband. And, it's quite horrible on his part. But I was hoping I would get some more context into what exactly led to her suicide. But instead, in the chronological order of things, we've actually surpassed Geraldine's suicide, and now we're mainly concerned with Ida's son Hugo and his love affairs. So it's essentially a novel about love affairs, and you can't really say that it's plot driven because it's not. There's no plot driven thread. It's kind of snapshots of Ida's life and the life of those in her family. But it's not really character driven either because we don't really dig into a single character, and it's not a single character driving the plot. Rather, it's a series of snapshots showing how horrible mismatched marriages can be. And the delicious tonic water. Tonic water is, oddly enough, it's something, I'm going to have to set this down if I'm going to undo the lid. Tonic water is something that I will literally drink on its own because it is one of the most delicious things in the world. And gin and tonic are a great combination, but I will literally drink the tonic water by itself, but I will not drink the gin by itself. And I wanted to get a lime too, but I wasn't in the proximity of a grocery store. I literally went to the LCBO and then popped into the Shoppers Drug Mart next door. And oddly enough, I could have gotten a lime because Shoppers Drug Mart actually had a display of fresh fruit at this location, which was bizarre to me. But when I went to use the self-checkout, it wouldn't let me purchase the single lime for 79 cents. It wasn't recognizing the barcode. And so I ended up abandoning a single lime at the self-checkout, but what else was I going to do? There wasn't a human being in sight. Some of the downfalls of self-checkouts these days. And this is the first time I've tried this brand of gin, Broker's Gin. I usually go for whatever is on sale. And there were some interesting gins on the shelf. A cherry gin, a couple of flavored ones that I think I wouldn't want to put it with a tonic, but I suppose for people who drink it by itself or adding it to some other sort of mixed drink, it would be pretty neat. I'm a little puzzled by the random little plastic cap because it doesn't really have a purpose. It's not holding anything on, it's just a decorative waste of plastic. So I think I'm going to get this vlog for the day uploaded. And while it's uploading, I will finish those last 20 pages or so of Portrait in Brownstone. And then the big question, of course, is what am I going to start reading next from my TBR? So walking into the dark corner of the living room, I think I might read The Moon and the Sixpence next. Just because of the books on my TBR, that's the one that I'm most excited for. And I am going to remove the dust jacket before I go ahead and read this because I am worried that it'll get torn up in my bag and I don't want to lose that delightful dust jacket. But overall, I think it's been a good first day of the reading rush, and I will see you back tomorrow when I'm vlogging again, I guess.